Day two started with a bang at training camp and ended with a dud for Trevor Lawrence. We'll tell you all about it here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
She ain't playing around. She said your team every day, and she's right. And we always thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you slide over to YouTube if you're watching podcast. Make sure you go over to our page, which is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And then wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure you go to that location, whatever platform it is, and make sure you check it out every single day to make sure that you do not miss an episode. I mean that, man. I don't want episodes being missed around here, man. You know what I'm saying? Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Shout out to the everydayers that join us here every single day, and you can be an everyday. All you got to do is join us every single day. Even the dude that was standing today, I didn't get his name because it was a little bit crowded and I was in a little bit of a hurry. Standing in the autograph line, he said he listens every single day, and we really appreciate that. And to the Jaguars director or manager of social media, what up, my man? We met today. He came up and introduced himself to me as well. So even the people who do the job every day are everydayers. How about that? All right, we're going to talk about the defense making them work hard. We'll land there at the end, and I'll give a PSA about Trevor Lawrence and his struggles during that segment. In the middle segment, we're going to give a salute to Dewey Wingard, man, because he represents a group of people that I think everybody forgot about. In fact, I was standing on the sideline talking to my man Ryan Green from 1010XL, and we were looking around for Antonio Johnson, and as soon as we kept looking around for him, Dewey started making plays, got 2 picks on Trevor Lawrence in the end zone, and really won the day. But first, the day two, it started with a bang. The bang, as always, is nothing on the field here in training camp. It was defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen. Look here, man. I don't have man crushes on anybody. And if you do, no problem. I don't want no smoke with nobody now. But my thing is every single time I hear Ryan Nielsen speak, and this is my first encounter with him in person, and I even got a chance to ask him a question. But every single time I hear him speak about football in general, but specifically the Jaguars, I think I get smarter. Yep, I'm 55 years old, and I can admit that when I hear people talk about football that communicate very well, that are articulate, and that have a unique way of getting their ideas across, I get smarter. It's my goal on this podcast to make people smarter, right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because when the process of making people smarter, you get the gotcha crowd, and the gotcha crowd will sit there and tell you exactly what they know and how stupid you are and all of that stuff. That does not happen with Ryan Nielsen. I have the humility to be able to listen to other people and understand when I am being enlightened and listening to a different perspective. Therefore, I know it can still be done, so I'm going to keep doing what I do. But let me tell you something this guy said today. If you follow me on social media, you've seen the quote. He was asked about players, and I think the question had something to do with players adjusting to the scheme, and because I know there was a lot of carryover coming from minicamp about how quick guys would adjust to whatever, and Doug Peterson wanted to see how much was retained from the minicamps and the OTAs to now during training camp. And they're putting a bunch of different people out there in different positions. One day a guy's a left corner. The next minute he's a right corner. Or one plays at left corner. A few plays later he's at right corner. Then he's in the slot. They're lining guys up all over the place to see what works. And they're going to go in late at night, like I said yesterday, and look at that eye in the sky, which you cannot hide from. And it's going to tell them every single thing we need. They're going to know who missed a rep, who didn't miss a rep. So when the question was asked to him about the acumen and the ability of these players to retain stuff and whether or not they listen and trust, I think that's the way it was. I was more caught up in his response. And I think I gave a big because it felt churchy, right? And I love me some good spiritual church talk. The man said, and I quote, players don't care what you know until they know that you care. I'm going to repeat it again. Players don't care what you know until they know that you care. Have y'all heard anybody ever say anything like that when talking about football or when talking about your Jacksonville Jaguars? I haven't heard it. I heard grit, and I heard about accountability, and I heard some flim-flarm cuss words from Doug Marrone over the years, and the amount of transparency and easy way of understanding the approach of Ryan Nielsen. If I can feel it, I know it resonates with the players. And before somebody says something, I always got to do this. Somebody's going to say it doesn't mean nothing if they don't win on the field. I know that. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about this. And hopefully this helps them get to the point where they can lead on the field, and we're not putting the cart before the horse. But you got to understand what is expected of you before you're able to accomplish that. You really have to. You got to understand it all. I love the competition. I also love the fact that there are no depth charts. None whatsoever. Guys are going in and out, in and out, and in and out. I asked them a question about moving guys around and knowing what guys could do. I asked them if there was a fine line between basically overdoing that because you want to know, you want guys to be able to do what they do and do it well. Basically what I said was, you can be a jack of all trades and a master of none if you overdo the versatility aspect. I'm going to give you his answer in just a second, but we're going to get back to why it's important for him and them to be able to communicate, but to be able to do it in a way where you still hold guys accountable. It's pretty much just like what I've seen so far from the defense. It ain't complicated at all. It ain't complicated. It's not. You ain't got to sit here and do all this thinking and reading, reacting. It is very deliberate. You know exactly what they want you to do. You go here, you go there, you chase them here, and you do this and you do that. And it's the back and the front end are tied together. Chris Richard, and I'm going to say his name correctly. I call him Chris Richard. It's Chris Richard because I heard, so this is another thing I heard from coordinator Nielsen. Chris Richard does a great job coaching the back end, and Corey, the other defensive coordinator, on the back end of it. And you can tell, and even Nielsen says he's learned a lot from Richard. And I think all of that is amazing. I think the level of back and forth, I think the level of teaching, the level of accountability, I think all of that means something, man. And I just haven't heard those things being mentioned before with how they want to go about their business and how they want to get things done. It's a breath of fresh air, and I almost got to stop myself, man, because this defense looks really, really good early. And I'm not just talking about taking advantage of the offense. I'm not just talking about the drills. I'm talking about how they look and how they appear physically. They're also moving and playing fast. And you can tell they're thinking the game, but they're more or less reacting instinctively as football players. Tyson Campbell has been, I give John Shipley credit for saying it. He says Tyson Campbell's been the best player over the last 2 days, or the first 2 days. And I agree with him. John Shipley, beat writer for SI. Yeah, I'll agree with him. He definitely has. And it's not because he's made all these plays. It's because ain't nothing getting by him and nothing getting past him. And if you just watch him, no matter who he's guarding, whether it's BTJ, I don't care if it's Christian Kirk, whoever, they are not getting open. They're not getting open. I don't think nobody's caught a ball on Tyson Campbell since they've been doing all of these drills. And they've probably gone 25 plays each, both days, in 7-on-7, 11-on-11. I don't remember Tyson Campbell being the victim of any of that stuff. In fact, all I see, he was around a bunch of plays that had to be thrown out of bounds because or where they blew the whistle because the quarterback had too much time, and they're not just letting these drills go through. The way it works is the quarterback doesn't get rid of the ball in X amount of time, the whistle blows. So good for him. Tyson Campbell, I'll say this, if there were, let's just say hypothetically, everybody we see was a recruit, Tyson Campbell would be a 5-star recruit. Trayvon and Josh Allen would be 5-star recruits. Foyle would come and be a 5-star recruit. Dewey would be a high 4-star recruit with the way he's played. I think Cisco has done a good job. I haven't seen him get victimized either by anybody. I can't think of anybody else, including Trevor. Trevor would be a high 4-star recruit because of his physical skills, but Trevor had a bad day today. But I'm not going to overreact to it. In fact, I'm going to tell you why I won't overreact to it. I'm going to tell you a guy who was responsible for making that day bad, and that's Dewey Wingard. I'm going to tell you why it's important that we don't forget about players like Dewey while we're looking for all of these new people to just come in and push guys out. Dewey Wingard is an important player in this football team, and we'll get to it in segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's sponsor is Gametime, and let me tell you something. Don't ever worry about Gametime telling you that your lack of planning is not their responsibility or their emergency. That's nonsense. Your lack of planning is their emergency. Or your lack of action, like maybe you had to wait on payday and you wanted to go to the game, but you had to make sure your money was straight first. You had to go to that concert, but you had to make sure your money was good. You had to wait until payday to buy those theater tickets. Well, guess what? With those last-minute deals that are a priority for Gametime, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Man, it's easy to find and buy all of the tickets, especially Major League Baseball, because they're in the heat of their season right now. For every kind of event you want in your area, views from all seats in the venue, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Gametime and download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today, where last-minute tickets are a priority, and you'll get them at the lowest price, and they guarantee it at Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen. Talking about day 2, some of the top performers. I'm going to give the top performers overall to my man, Andrew Dewey Wingard. This is funny, man, because about 2.5 years ago, I wanted Dewey run out of here. But he was the heart and soul of the team, and people swore by him and loved him. Even Urban Meyer was crazy about Dewey Wingard. Urban Meyer thought Dewey Wingard was pretty decent. You know, when he left, Dewey didn't have like a lot of great things to say about Urban, like nobody else. But Urban used to always talk about Dewey Wingard. I thought Dewey Wingard was just a try-hard dude, a blue-collar dude who you love having him around, but you could always find a guy to replace him. And I think a lot of people thought like that about him and a few other folks on the team, even though they may not admit that right now, but they probably thought that way about him and a few other people. Well, let me tell you something. Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso says, the great Lee Corso. These dudes have something to say, and they're standing up and they're saying, no, you ain't getting rid of me that quick, Jack. That ain't happening. Andrew Wingard is one of them. In a little bit, I'm going to give you a handful of guys that I hope take that same approach and use that as their mantra to keep competing and not give up, because I think it raises the floor of this team. Andrew Wingard had 2 interceptions with Trevor Lawrence. They came within about 7 to 10 minutes. The irony is it's the same pass in the same spot, looked like the exact same play. I thought somebody had hit the rewind button on all of us. I had to look around to make sure people weren't moving backwards. You know what I'm saying? I thought the rewind button got, because it was the exact same play. Good plays by Andrew Wingard. Not the hardest plays to make, but still, Johnny on the spot, caught the ball, Crowd went crazy. The first one, he ran it all the way back for a touchdown, even though they had already run another play by the time he got back, but that's cool. And then the second one, he turned around and he played with the crowd and he told them, come on, keep going, keep going. I tell you what, you're going to look up and Andrew Wingard is going to be the starting split safety with Andre Cisco. I think that's going to happen. The way it looks, he just looks like he has a navigation system in his head. He's always Johnny on the spot. He was in play to make a couple of big tackles in the flat. Obviously, they're not hitting because they're in shorts and shells or shorts and helmets with protective gear on top with no shoulder pads. So I'm telling you, he was the talk of the day. He was really, really the talk of the day, which means that Trevor Lawrence was the talk of the day in a way that we don't want to talk about, but we're going to get to it here in a little bit. Other guys that should do exactly what Andrew Wingard is doing. Chad Muma. I think Ventrell Miller has looked really good. He's doing that because he's the dude that everybody was sitting there thinking like, I don't know if he's going to make it. I tell you what, Ventrell Miller might end up being in the rotation. If he doesn't start, he'll be in the top. He'll be the first linebacker. The way he's looked, and Chad Muma has looked good as well. I think they're pushing. I haven't heard a lot from Devin Lloyd, but then again, just because you haven't heard from a dude doesn't mean he's not where he's supposed to be. Just because you haven't heard from him doesn't mean he's not where he's supposed to be. But those other guys are flashing. You know who played well today? Ledbetter. Defensive tackle, number 99. Looked good. Chased the play out all the way to the outside. And it would have been a tackle for loss. Another good player that's saying, you know what? I'm not going to let these young kids from LSU come in here and take my lunch money. I'm going to fight. And he's probably fighting guys like Tyler Lacey for a roster spot. I think both of those rookies make it. Of course, Devon Hamilton's going to make it, depending on how many 300-pound type guys that they keep. Ledbetter, 99, has a good shot to make this team if he continues to flash and play like he played today. On offense, it's hard to say, but I can tell you what. The fourth, fifth, and sixth receiver spots are looking like they might be. It depends how many they keep. If they keep 6, I think they might be filled up. If they keep 7, it's going to get very interesting. But it seems like they dial up plays specifically for Devin Duvernay and for Parker Washington. We suspect that that's number 4 and number 5 because the top 3, Christian Kirk, BTJ, and Gabe Davis, are considered the top 3. And they were off on the side working with wide receivers coach Chad Hall. They were working on the side. He was working with 3. He had those 3. When they run out there, they mix and match them a little bit, but there's sometimes when you do see those 3 guys out there together. So we believe that those are the guys that are obviously going to start. But Parker Washington is setting himself up to make a lot of plays in the slot, as well as Devin Duvernay with a handful of plays where it seems like they really, really have their number called. They're going to try to call these guys' number to specifically get their hands on the ball so they can do some damage. The offense is ahead of the defense. Well, the defense is ahead of the offense right now. Excuse me. Pardon me for that. The defense is ahead of the offense. It doesn't mean the offense hasn't done anything. I'll tell you what they did do pretty well and what the reason why everybody's overreacting, and maybe it's an overreaction. And if y'all think it ain't overreaction about Trevor, that's fine. I'm not trying to take up for him, but I'm going to give you my assessment of that while talking about the defense in the third and final segment. But first, I have to let you know that Locked On has launched the first 24/7 streaming service. That's right. Locked On has launched the first 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is what it's called, and it's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Especially when you get tired of hearing those dudes on those networks sit there and yell and scream all day, you mute your TV and you can still hear them yelling. So find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, man. Segment number 3, we're going to talk about the defense, and we're going to go ahead and have that little conversation that we got to have about Trevor Lawrence. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. I'll let y'all know about eBay Motors, man. Passion, drive, and patience. That's right. It's the formula for winning championships on the football field, but it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We also thank you for making us your first listen. That's right. Defense, athletic, a lot of depth. Ryan Nielsen spoke today about how important depth is. You got to get to your next guy. That next guy has to be able to play. One of the things he said that was interesting is injuries happen all over the league. And then you can't ever get to the point where you're putting a guy in and you haven't basically vetted him on the field, where you haven't put him in with the starters. That's why you do see some of the starters mixed in. And it's early. It's not late. They're constantly mixing guys in to see who can do what. And that's what I like. It's a true evaluation process. It's not full of assumptions. It's not, well, we know what he can do in this situation. No, it feels like, and I know it's not realistic because of the contract situations, but it feels like every one of those 90 guys is legitimately being given a shot to make the ball club. And by putting them in early and mixing them in, that's exactly what you get. You're giving them an opportunity to show you what they can do. And they, according to Ryan Nielsen, it sounds like they're going to rely on the tape. Now, might not totally rely on it to see. They might not totally rely on it just to see who's going to make the team and who doesn't. But they are going to rely on it, I think, to make corrections. And they're going to coach everybody, not just the dudes that are the starters, because it sounds like it's an organizational decision. It's not something. Someone asked him if that was a league-wide. I think Brent Martineau did. Asked him if it was a league-wide thing, if that's something he'd ever seen, or is it really something that is just here? And he said it's pretty much organizational. It is what they have gotten together and decided that they needed to do in order to have a fair evaluation. And what it really also does to me, it creates competition. There's certain guys that have certain contracts. They are not getting cut, and we know that. But you got to do something to make them not feel safe. And hopefully they respond to it. If they have the football character that we all hope they do, they respond to it. And then it creates competition sort of by default. You're giving opportunities to other people. And hopefully one of the byproducts of that is your guys answer the bell, the guys that you have under contract. They answer the bell, and all of a sudden you've created competition by saying that you're giving everybody a shot. By giving everybody a shot, you probably are creating competition. But the goal here is to put pressure on guys. The goal here is to see who can do what when they need to do it. The goal here is to make everybody out there believe that they have a shot, and for those guys to go out and actually do it. Now, long term, that benefits all of those dudes because you got the practice squad and you also have injuries that may happen. You have some coaches that might end up somewhere else one day, and these guys, especially the young guys, they're still out there. And he's like, I remember that dude. He worked his butt off in camp. We just didn't have room for him, but he can play. It also creates a chance at the end of camp that you can get compensation for some of these guys. Highly unlikely because people know you got to cut them, but it does create those type of opportunities. So it's a good thing. That defense can't look good unless somebody allows it. Now let's get to the offense and Trevor Lawrence. The reason why I'm not overreacting for Trevor's 2 interceptions is because of this. One, it's early. Two, I'm trying to pretend that I didn't see 2022 and 23. And I'm saying this is camp. This is what it's for. It's because you want to see guys see what they can do, see what they can get away with. But now let me give you the downside of it. Those interceptions look too familiar. The second one looked just like the first one. That is a red flag. You don't want to see something you just saw. So now it makes me, now remember 22 and 23, when I said that Trevor was trying to play hero ball, and when they got towards the end zone, he was making too many mistakes. Sometimes it's throwing it, sometimes it's dropping it on the ground. Whatever it was, it's pressure. And that part I'll give you. The 2 turnovers he made today, they look exactly like a lot of them that he's made that have really, really made you scratch your head. Do I think it's a situation where that's just who he is? No, I don't think that. At least I hope that's not the case. But I do think there's an iron sharpening iron here. I think at some point he has to realize you can't be rolling to your left, trying to throw across your body into the back of the end zone to a 5'11 receiver like Christian Kirk. And then if they're in over-under coverage, they're going to get you. They're going to suck you in. He has a lot of confidence in his arm, and he loves the back of that end zone. But if you hold that ball too long, man, in the NFL, people will make you pay. And Trevor has to learn that, and he cannot play hero ball. So from this point forward in camp, it is something that you need to watch. This is only day 2. I don't think the offense has played terribly. If they ran 25 snaps between 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 today, I don't know the number. It could have been more than that, but let's just say it's 25. They went about 18 out of 25, and they got in the end zone about 5 or 6 times, which ain't terrible. But it's hard to qualify it when the defense isn't really hitting. The line isn't really going too hard, trying to do too much penetration. But you have to keep that in mind. The defense made about 5 good plays in those 20 plays. Now, 3 of them were turnovers, and a couple of other ones where they jumped the routes and knocked the ball down, or they were in place to make a behind the line of scrimmage tackle for loss. So, yeah, those are things that you really, really want to pay attention. But I still remind people they were in shorts. It's not real football. Maybe Trevor, on some of those instances, he takes off and runs. Maybe he's trying to see what he can get away with. But maybe, just maybe, we want to see him not do that stuff anymore. How about that? We don't really want to see you do that. And the pressure's going to be on him now, because once you get an extension, no one's looking at you as a young guy anymore. You're a second contract dude, even though it technically hasn't started yet. Still, you got the money. They've committed to you. You have to really, really conduct yourself. I remember going to practices through the years. Now, I got to go a little bit ways back when I say I went to a practice where the quarterback didn't make no mistakes. That was probably Mark Brunell. I saw what Mark Brunell was like in his prime. And when he was in his prime, those mistakes were few and far in between. Trevor made 2 within 10 minutes today, and I probably went to 2 training camps as a part-time media member back then when Brunell was playing, and I probably saw him make 2 mistakes his entire training camp in both years. He has to tighten it up. And now the pressure's going to be on him because people are saying that he's not playing like a $275 million man. My news to them is, well, he ain't playing right now. He's practicing. So we'll see how that goes. I'll tell you how something goes that is Locked On Sports today. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports today and now available on the free Fire TV channels app. I'm going to talk about Trevor Lawrence in my next podcast. Are we going to have to suffer through a constant barrage of overreactions and microscopic opinions on Trevor since he got this money? You bet we are. I'll give you the ins and outs and of that and see how we got to start mentally preparing ourselves. And when, at what point do we start thinking, we got a problem? I'll do all of that in the next edition of Locked On Jaguars. You guys make sure you take care of each other, and I'll see you next time.